Hello and welcome back to my kitchen, not the workshop or the woods. By the way, the weather is absolutely horrendous here in North Cornwall. You'll see I've got a hiking stick drying in the window. That's because it's a varnished one. As I've said, I don't do many varnished anymore. Quite simply customer needs. But the hiking group that I do produce for, they still are the last bastions of varnished hiking sticks. So I've got one there drying. And when I've got varnished hiking sticks, I bring them in because the workshop isn't the best environment. It's dusty and it doesn't have, climate control. So I always find varnish sticks, come out better in here. I do have one by the table. I've got to wrap to get off to the customer, and that's a trip out to the couriers in a moment once I've wrapped it. But I've had a parcel from the postman, and I'm really excited for you to see what's in it. And I'll give you a clue. It's in relation to the Celtic pagan staff I'm going to make for a town crier and the bards of Cornwall. So I'm really excited about that because it means the process is starting. So I'll be bringing you along with that, and I'll take you into the workshop and let you have a little look about what I'm up to and what I'm going to be doing today. A typical day when it's too wet for me to start steaming the sticks to straighten, and more importantly to get that staff, I've got to select the wood and I've got to straighten that, but it's too wet today. But I've got loads of work to do, as in stripping and prepping other sticks, so I'll be getting on with that. And I'll show you the other three, because I did 4 sticks yesterday, which kept me in the workshop till 10 o'clock, and that's one of them up there in the window, and I've got 3 in the workshop drying. And they've got little songbirds on them, and at the end of this video I'll put a little bit of footage of a bird that's nested in our garden, and it's fledged some hatchlings, and that's another reason what I see I put on my hiking sticks. But in any case, I'm going to make this happen. So as you can see, we really are a cottage industry. The stick is all pre-booked in with the courier. I'm just now going to drop it off to the depot. The wife done that this morning, and now it's up to me to get it to the courier. I've said it before, we can have couriers come to our place, but we found that usually adds another day, maybe 2, on transit to the customer. So it's just faster. We seem to cut out a day or 2 by just taking it direct to the pickup depot. That's something that may have to change, although our local post office keeps telling us that they're in the process of trying to get the courier we use to be a pickup for them. But we have to wait and see on that. That hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to get in the car and get this off and on the way to the customer. So as you can see, nothing's going to happen outside. When I go working on my hiking sticks in a moment, I'll be down in the woodshed. But we've got a newish car. Our other car blew up, or not blew up, but the belt slipped and all the timing went and knackered the engine. So to cut a long story short, we've got another car. It's not new, but it's new to us. I'm not allowed to put any sticks when I harvest inside this car, as well as my surfboards, may I add. So I've got a roof rack, but I'm going to have to make up an additional framework on it to be able to support hiking sticks. Yeah, I'm under orders. I'm not to get this car dirty or treat it like I did the other one, which really became almost like a works van because it was just used for dog surfing, surfboards, hiking, car camping. It was everything: harvesting sticks, building supplies, anything and everything. But this car here is to remain a family car, and everything else is to go up on the roof rack, no matter how inconvenient it is to me. But I can understand that. Right then, so I'm going to head off to the couriers now and get this done. And yeah, I've got to stop off and get some wire wool. That's yet again another thing. I try to combine all my journeys and things I need in one. So I've got some crafting materials, steel wool, which I need to get from my local hardware store. So I'm going to head off up the road. Right, that's everything. Now I can head off home and start cracking on with the actual crafting. This ironically is all part of what I have to do to produce the hiking sticks, get them to the customer, and also, you know, my commodities that are usable that I have to replace. It might seem nothing, but without it, I can't do what I do back in the workshop, and it does mean that this is all part of it. And if you two are running a small little crafting outfit, this is the sort of thing you will probably be doing yourself, or if you're thinking of it, this would be something you will have to factor into. It's not just the enjoyable crafting side of it. And indeed, I'm going to be down in the woodshed. I know it's undercover, but I'm still having to get down there in these weather conditions to start sanding and produce the blanks so I can do the wood burning and put copper tips on and go forward in that respect. I still have to do some work. But, you know, this is the complete package I'm trying to present to you on this channel of what happens in my workshop. I've just come down to the woodshed just to do a little quick look around, just to see how much water is being pushed in here by the wind, because quite simply it's about 40 kilometers an hour. It's really blowing hard, but it's dry enough for me to come down here and do some work later on. It can't be that wet because obviously a cat's gone to sleep on the hay bale. But looking out, you can see the wind and you can see all the rain. It's not looking very nice out there. So beside the one I've got in the kitchen, which is varnished, these are oiled and they're drying, and these two here are basically going to be mine, which I'm going to sell myself. But this is the custom ordered one for a gentleman. I don't know if I can turn it around, put it up here. Nice wood, by the way, on that one. Some stunning colours and markings. But yeah, he wanted a little. Oh, he wanted a little songbird. Obviously, his initials. Some really nice colouring. I'm really liking this one myself. And I've polished that wood to it's absolutely baby bum smooth. But yeah, that's a custom one. And that'll be ready to go off tomorrow. Just put that back. Obviously, I'm going to be selling this myself. There's a little, if I come around here, a little songbird with a worm in its mouth. And this is a barked one. This one's a little bit wet because the bark doesn't take all the oil. Another bird one there. But yeah, that's what I was in here doing till 10 o'clock last night with the one with varnish. But I'm going to make tracks in here, and I'm going to show you something. I've had a delivery. I'm going to show you what's inside. Now, that Celtic pagan staff I was talking about, this is in relation to it. Now, I've pretty much spoken to the person about the requirements, and there was a little bit of a hint of, you know, the Gandalf kind of staff, but obviously that's a root ball coming out sideways. And I explained I don't have a stick with a root ball like that, and it was just an indication of the type of feel and look. So I've been in contacted a supplier, and well, not contacted, I've actually bought from a supplier of deer antler a nice piece of red deer antler. Now, this is different. As you can see, it's not what you would call a traditional one that you would use for a stick. You would be looking at a nice Y piece. Well, this is almost like a cup shape like that. I got smaller tine there reaching around to the front, and I got two on the back. Now, I think this will give it a real pagan-y kind of like Celtic feel. It's not got that traditional thumbstick look about it. It looks different. It feels different. It looks untamed. It looks like something which has something of a magical quality in the fact that it doesn't look like what every other stick that would be using deer antler would have, which would be the simple Y piece of some description. This third little piece here coming around, you could almost imagine a crystal sat in the socket there, but obviously that's not what's going to happen. So I think this piece of deer antler will do just the job, and it will give it that pagan feel. The person who sold it to me has done an absolutely fantastic job to the cut. Sometimes when I buy from sellers or suppliers, it's not the best cut, and it's off angles, and I got to put that little bit more extra work to get a nice flush surface. Whoever cut this knew what they were doing, and they knew what somebody like myself does require for it to become an easier task to make this a craft item. There's a few issues. The tines, I will have to just sand them back if I can. If I can't, it may be milliput, or it may be I just use some clear resin just to seal it over there so no more damage or splits happen. But it's looking absolutely gorgeous, and I think that says a little bit pagan-y, Celtic-y, otherworldly, you know, almost magical feel about it. So I'm really pleased with this, and as you can imagine, this will be sat right on top the actual shaft of the staff. So I'm starting to get it together. They've insisted on a copper tip, but they want a large copper tip. Same reason as I use copper down here in Cornwall. Obviously they're Cornish, so obviously they want it to represent Cornish from the mines themselves. They're Cornish bards after all. And I'm going to be doing an oversized copper tip on it, polished right up. Hence the steel wool, because I use a lot of this when I'm polishing copper. There is always a purpose for everything I do. It's not random. So yeah, I'm really excited about this, and as you can see, it's a fantastic, it looks fantastic. So the weather's just too wet for me to start steaming here, and I don't want to get wet myself. It would just become thoroughly miserable. So coming back into this part of the workshop, I'm looking now roughly what staves I've got, or sticks that I can use for the actual shaft. So I'm beginning to start considering what would work, as in for straightening, because it's going to be an heavy. There's a nice thumbstick up there. I didn't notice that one. I was looking for one the other day. Yeah, I'm looking now to find or select something that I can start making the actual shaft from, as in straightening. Right, I've just pulled two pieces out, and yeah, this is real heavy gauge. Maybe a little bit on the too heavy side for it, because there's going to be a lot of processing that down. And there are some bends in it. I'm a little bit worried about this bend here, because if I can show you, it's got a little bit of a knuckle. It's not a knot, but it's a little bit of a knuckle. So when I'm straightening that, there's a chance that after it's cooled down, it might try to return to its original shape. Yeah, that's quite a little curve or knuckle there, but there's a very gentle curve here, and that kind of curve will straighten out perfectly and easy. And you can see the difference in that curve, which instantly tells you that's going to be a successful straighten there. But this here, because it's got such a V shape in it and a knuckle underneath, yeah, that could be a little bit of a different story. And obviously, because it's such a heavy gauge of wood, it's going to require a lot of brute force to get that into shape. But that is a candidate there. Another one here. Yet again, massive. These are probably 2, if not 3 times the size of a walking cane's gauge of a stick. At least double what a normal hiking stick would be. Yet again, massive piece of wood at the top I'd have to work down. The actual bends in it look like they would come out. They're not too severe. There's a few little knuckles there and knots, but they're at the bottom and they could be worked out. And the same here. And what kind of length are we talking about here for these here? Let me get a tape measure on it. I've got one here. This is where you could do with a second pair of hands. And I'm looking at the 5'6". That's 5 foot there. Where's that? That's 6 foot. That's 5 there. That's about 5'6" here. So I could lose that real heavy bit on the top. That's a candidate. I'll probably steam 3 pieces. They won't and straighten because I won't waste them, because what doesn't or isn't successful, because of the length of them, I will be able to achieve a hiking stick from this stave. So yeah, I'm going to select one more, and that'll give me 3. Like I said, I'm doing 3 because if I have a failure, I want to be able to go straight to another piece of wood and not have to go through the straightening process, because because they're such a heavy gauge of wood, they'll have to be steamed on their own in the chamber to allow enough heat to circulate and penetrate this density of wood. I can get about 3 or 4 ordinary sized sticks. If I can put this in comparison, you can see how big and how dense that wood is on top compared to a normal hiking stick here. So as you can see, even at this stage, a lot of planning and preparation is going into making this item, this Celtic, pagan staff. And this is the bit I hate, when I start digging in amongst the rack and it all falls. And I've had that before. I've been on my ass with about 200 or 300 sticks on top of me. I would love one of the workshops you see on some woodworkers or stick makers videos online, and everything is perfect. Unfortunately, I'm working with what I've got and in the conditions I've got. It happens, but now I've got cat food in the way. Right, start digging through. Like I said, I got a nice Y stick there. I don't do many of them. There's so many people that do them as their speciality. I don't want to tread on their toes. And on top of that, that market is pretty saturated. Right, let me get it out. Come on. Oh, this has got a nice colour to it. Obviously there's going to be no bark on these. Yeah, again, there's another bend there with a little bit of a knuckle there. Not as severe as the other one, but it is a candidate. And I think the wood might be slightly darker underneath this one, because the bark is extremely like blood red dark. It is hazel the same, but I think it's grown, it's had good growing conditions, this one, and it's still retained the early coloration of the little like twiglets as they come out of the ground. But yeah, this one's another candidate. Oh, and 2 of those have got to go off to the post office because they're slightly longer than what my other courier will take to the customer. But that's tomorrow morning's job before starting anything else. So guys, I'm going to be down here processing these sticks down and then shaping them and getting them to the point I can put the copper tips on. I've already shaped and made the copper tips to go on these. I did that off camera. You saw me do that only a few videos back anyway. So I've done that, and I've also selected another 2 or 3 pieces which I think will make the staff. So it's been quite productive, but I've got several hours down here shaping these and getting these to the point, like I said, I can go further and get back up in the other workshop and start listening to some music while I would burn. But that'll probably be tomorrow, along with taking some photographs and doing some more courier runs. But yeah, you can see it in an ordinary day like mine, in amongst the crafting, there's other things that has to happen to make all this work. And it can be frustrating when you want to crack on with a project. But like I said, it's part and parcel of the whole process. And if you're not willing to do this part of it, ultimately the crafting side will fail, because you have to be able to do the logistics, the postage, dealing with customers, sourcing materials, and that all has to happen in amongst the crafting side of it. As you can see, I'm dealing with the weather down here in the woodshed, and it is quite pleasant. Like I said, I'm out of the rain and and weather enough for me to experience it without getting wet. But I'm ultimately, probably like a lot of you guys, we're going into an election, and I'm already thinking about, like, how it could potentially affect me later on. I'm a small crafter, I've got my own property, I'm self-employed. I have to do my taxes each year. I'm looking at what taxes, what way they could get their hands in my pocket, and what could there be any new legislations that may apply to me and things like that. So when you get older, I know younger people don't have that much of an interest in elections traditionally, but even for me, just as a stick maker, I do sit up and pay attention to elections and what each party says, because well, I'm looking to see how it potentially could affect me in the near term or long term. And I guess that's the same as everybody, but I just thought I'd just throw that in, because I suppose you could think what I do is a million miles away from anything like that, but it's not. Everything in life trickles down from the government that's selected of the day, and particularly taxes and what you got to pay out. And for a small crafter, that's the bits I'm looking at, because at the end of the day, I don't want too much more taxation or having to pay out too much more on my property, as in council taxes and things like that, because it all eats into a small income that I have, and you just do not want to get hit anymore. That's just a little bit of a rant there while I have my coffee and I'm thinking about things. But I'm going to crack on with these, and I don't want to be in the workshop till 10 o'clock tonight, so, which I was last night. I don't want to make too big a habit of it. So less talking, more drinking, and then crack on with the crafting. So thanks for coming along and seeing a little bit of what goes on in the workshop, on just an ordinary day. I mean, some days it is just literally crafting. If I'm sanding, it can take days. Not days doing it, it's just the fact that our hiking stick and crafting enterprise works alongside our family life. And obviously, I've got two small boys, and my wife needs assistance as well. So obviously I can only do what I do in and around my family life, and that's why I'm self-employed, because it allows me the flexibility. But having said that, as I keep alluding to, if I'm using time there and I've got commitments to the hiking sticks, I then have to start at the other end of the day working in the workshop. Today, Jamie and her daughter have been to hospital, so Jamie's had her daughter for assistance, but I've still had to do the school runs and do bits and bobs around the house, to make it all happen and run in amongst doing the hiking stick thing here. So, it's not about poor me, it's just life, and this is how things are. But I just thought I'd take you along and kind of a little bit of what happens in the workshop on an ordinary day. Right, I just thought I'd just touch on just two things regarding selling sites. Quite often I get asked, why don't I have a bigger volume or range on selling sites, so that people who don't feel inclined to contact me in person and do it by that route can just go on the selling platforms, find my products, or just find them when they're searching hiking sticks, and there's a vast array. Well, I always envisaged I would, but it's only spare capacity that I do put on those selling sites, because I'm a one-man band, and with all my other commitments I've just expressed to you, that you can see that I do struggle, because quite simply my custom orders, and that is people phoning me up or contacting me through email or messenger or any kind of message and saying, hey, can you do a stick with a crocodile and some initials? I do what the customer wants and I produce that for them, but they take up, or that method of me selling hiking sticks takes up the vast majority of my production time. Any spare capacity I then put on selling platforms. Sometimes I'll only have 2 or 3, sometimes I'll have 10 or 12, but I always envisaged I would probably have 20, even 30, as a selection, and I would like to get there at some point, be able to do that. But at the moment, with the way things are, if I get 10 items on, I'm really lucky. Most times it will be in the region of between, 5 to 8 items. But I do have items on those selling platforms, so people can find them and view them and purchase if they wish. And I did find out something else about selling platforms, or what I read online. It just popped up randomly, and that was that if you're doing a side hustle and with the selling on those platforms, you have to understand that if you sell past a certain number of items or a monetary value, HMRC will be informed by those selling platforms. From what I understand by reading what I did online, you will have to check out the authenticity of that claim. And I've, from what I can understand, the source I read it was reasonably I would say of a very reputable nature, but it is information I've gleaned offline, so you would have to check that claim out. But and if anybody knows for that this is definitely 100% the case, I'd be interested to hear from you guys. I personally don't have to worry. I can sell as much where I want and how I want, because quite simply I'm registered through HMRC as self-employed. Folklore Hiking Sticks is down as my enterprise, and obviously all my facts, figures, and each stick is sold, documented, and recorded in a timely manner when and how, and I do have printouts and receipts and everything like that. And at the end of the year, obviously that's presented to HMRC, and they obviously work out what I owe tax wise, and obviously that's how it works in the UK. But for yourself, if you're trying to do a bit of a side hustle, selling sticks and things like that, it's just something to bear in mind. You wouldn't want to find yourself getting into trouble. But obviously that relates to your own personal tax situation as well. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know that situation even existed. But yeah, thanks for coming along and seeing what just a random ordinary day in a hiking stick workshop looks like. Take care, stay safe, and hope to catch you guys out on the trail. And if you're not out on the trail when you see me, you might be actually watching me in the workshop. Take care.